welcome guys to another episode of the Footy GameDay Squad show. I'm your host Cal, and joining me today I've got Tom, as we're going to break down everything AFL Fantasy for round 4 that was. Tom, how are you feeling?
Dude, as you know, I was a bit under the weather over the past week, but I'm feeling heaps better now. Some may say my voice was like a Wish version of Darren Lockyer earlier, but as you can hear and now see, I'm feeling much better, sounding a lot better. So yeah, everything's thumbs up from me, mate.
Yeah, it was quite funny listening to you on the phone. Wish version of Darren Lockyer is a perfect way to put it. But you're right, it is good to have you back. I had to go solo in the last episode. You also know that we are missing Kerm. So Kerm's had an accident where he was chewing on some ice and lost part of his tooth. So the poor guy cannot take a trip at the moment. He is just getting, one thing after another. So please make sure you're sending Kerm some love in the comments because we miss him. I'm sure you guys do as well. So yeah, thinking of you, Kerm. Keen to have you back on really, really soon. Because footy's been great at the moment, hasn't it, Tom? Not for me personally as a Port Adelaide fan. I know Kerm was saying he wanted to talk about the Suns finally getting another win. But yeah, great weekend of footy. And I think we're going to start off, as we always do, with what we got right and what we got wrong. So maybe you can take us away.
Yeah, mate. This week, for what I got right, it's about Jake Lloyd. And I put him into my best 18 in the preview show. And I've just been reaping the benefits of this decision. He wasn't in round 1. He's entered in round 2, 3, and now 4. And he's been playing some great footy. He's so pivotal, in the Swans transition, moving the footy from the backs to the mids and the forwards. He just seems to be a guy who gets so many touches, and as a backman, it is just elite numbers from him. And if you look at his fantasy numbers and his statistical stats from the game, like, he looks like a mid. He's getting mid numbers, so it's just awesome to see. And that's what I got right this week.
Yeah, nice. I was watching that Swans game.
What about you on the...
I was just, that Swans game with Tegan. I know she's a massive Swans fan as well. So watching that roller coaster of emotions against North, I thought they had them there. But yeah, you were going to say what I got right.
Oh, dude, tell me about it.
Yeah, so what I got right, if you remember on our very first YouTube show, if you go back and look, I'd recently come off a shaved head, so I looked quite ridiculous at the time. But It was funny to even look back, even though it's not that long ago, at our first ever sort of YouTube video. But I did tell you and Kerm that Ben Keys is a fantasy star. He had killed it last year. I thought he was the best player and my star of the year for the Crows last year. And then he's backed it up this year, and you can see what he's done. It wasn't just a flash in the pan. So, yeah, I was pretty happy that I was right about Ben Keys. So, yeah, happy with that one.
Dude, star is the perfect way to put it. He has been unbelievable. He is the shining light for the Adelaide Crows right now. Just every single game, putting up monster numbers. And if you're a fantasy owner that has him and you listen to Callum in the preseason, you'd be pretty happy about that decision for sure.
Yeah. What about the things we got wrong, though? I'll let you go.
Yeah, let me go here because you know what? I've given this guy a lot of slack in the show and I'm looking at this sort of team. We've spoken about Geelong quite a lot in the preseason and I wasn't big on Tommy Hawkins, and Tommy Hawkins has just shoved that in my face with the last game and had an absolute ripper. Like, I just, they went up against a red-hot Brisbane Lions team, just mind you. A team that has barely lost this season and is going to be, contenders for a premiership heading into September. But Tommy Hawkins and Geelong showed the nation how good they are still. And Tommy just kicked a casual 5 goals in this one, mind you, and just was dominant again. He just has these games where he pops off. I didn't believe in him, and now he's showing me why I was so wrong. So, yeah, that is what I got terribly wrong this week, Callum. But what about you, mate?
Yeah, no, I like that one. I like that pick because I remember you going off about Hawkins, but yeah, when he is on, he is still scary good, even at his age. What I got wrong?
Oh, yeah.
So I've realised with these, as much as we get right in these shows, we probably get wrong probably more. And going with Josh Ward saying that he was going to win the NAB Rising Star was a wrong pick for me and a take. Something I've got wrong. I'm calling it early. I know it's only 4 rounds into the season, but I don't think he can do it. He might not even be the best rookie in his team, let alone the current league. And just having a look at how good the other guys are going at the moment. So he's averaging 57 GameDay Squad points, but Horne Francis, 80 points is his average. And you saw how well he played against your Swans firsthand. And then Nick Dacos is already averaging 100 GameDay Squad points, which is insane for a first-year player. So, of course, Rising Star isn't awarded just on fantasy, but I think it's a pretty clear indicator that those guys are a bit ahead of him at the moment. So, yeah, I got that pick wrong.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but you're right. There are so many young stars that are stepping up right now. Dacos is the perfect example. He's just been electric. What a player.
Alrighty, Tom, what we're going to jump into next quickly before we get into studs and duds is we're going to talk quickly about GameDay Squad, which is, of course, the reason why we're here. It's the platform that we play on, and it's Australia's first and currently only fantasy sport platform that currently uses blockchain technology here in Australia. We've got an Aussie rules game and a rugby league game, and we've been opening some packs, assembling our team in preparation for our season, which is just a couple of weekends away. So we've done it before. We've opened some packs, but with you guys being away for a couple of weeks, I was getting a bit itchy. So I've gone and I've poured a few packs, and I wanted to open them live on air with you here today, Tom. And I was hoping that all three of us would be here so we could spice it up and all have a go, but a bit of a lack of communication and Kerm not showing up means that somehow I've ended up with all three packs for myself. So, I reckon...
Yes, and you're not too mad about it either, are you, mate?
No. So I reckon we'll go through, we'll open a few packs. I'm keen to hear what you think, and then we'll continue on with studs and duds of the week. But obviously we're really excited with our platform. We keep building our teams, and we've got a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline as well. So yeah, very keen to see who everyone is packing as well, because we do have competition, Tom, pack of the week, which we do in our preview show. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, and then make sure you're sending in your best packs either on social media or on our Discord channel, which you'll find below. And Tom will be picking out a winner and offering that person a few free packs to open themselves. So yeah, I reckon we get straight into it. Tom, what do you reckon?
Yep. Yeah, mate, get straight into it. And guys, as you said, send in the packs. I'm going to pick a winner. Who doesn't want free packs, mate? But here we go. We've got this one opening up right now.
So a couple of common player packs here, which are our most basic ones here, but a couple of silvers and a gold. Yep. Fleeton and
we
Isaac
got a gold,
Smith.
Though. Yeah.
Yeah, I did get a gold. Isaac Smith as a silver, not a bad play. He had a pretty good game on the weekend. I think I'll touch on him briefly because I think he was stiff to miss out on my stud. But let's see who I got for my gold player.
Yep.
Not sure who those two fellas are on the left, but Isaac Smith. What would you give that pack out of a 1 to 10? How would you grade that, Tom?
I'll give that a 5. Isaac Smith's a very serviceable player. The other two, not so great. If they were a little bit better, they could have buffered it up to, around that 8 to 7 mark. But 5 out of 10 from me, mate.
5 out of 10. All right, we can do better. But unfortunately, there we haven't got the animation that we want.
But we can do better.
Yeah, all silvers in this pack, though. So these are 3-player common packs that I'm opening up.
But it could be quality.
Could be quality. Remember, you can get all players and all cards from all the common packs. You just have a lower chance of getting some of those rarer cards. And that's not a very good pack. I'm pretty keen to move on that one quickly. I'm kind of scared to see what you rate that 1 out of 10.
Yeah, mate, and while you are moving on, I'll give my rating. That's a solid 3 to 2 out of 10 there. Yeah, that's no real serviceable player to put in the lineup. Those would be straight in the bank. Saving on to maybe one of them becomes good.
Yeah, that's what it's very similar to a FIFA where you can have as many players in your reserves, and then you can obviously in the future we're going to have a transfer market where you'll be able to buy and sell and get rid of and do a few other things. But at the moment, not what we want from them. A couple of silvers and a gold again. I think overall not a great run with the card rarities, but let's see. Silver players could do without either of them. This is looking worse than the one that's just gone, but hopefully our gold player here can turn it around. Still side bottom. Would have been good maybe 10 years ago. Do you reckon he's okay? I don't know.
Look, he actually had a good game on the weekend. I'll give it to him.
Yeah. He's still a good player, but you got to remember our game's a dynasty game, so there is that win now element, but there's also that looking for the future. And like someone like Sidebottom, you maybe only get 1 or 2 top years from him left, if that. Right? He had a good year last year, but yeah, not a great run of packs there, but of course that is GameDay Squad, our fantasy platform that we are here and brought by. So yeah, go over and check it out. All the links and everything in the description below. GameDaySquad.com.au. Get started. There are free starter packs. You can go in, start building your team. It's completely free to play. To join and all of that, and build your team from the start. So yeah, make sure you're getting on board with all that. Alrighty, Tom, we are going to move on to one of my favourite segments, which of course is Studs and Duds, where we have a look at every game that was on the weekend in the AFL, and we pick out a couple of studs or one or two studs, depending on how many there were, and the same for duds in each game. So we've split it up. Obviously, with Kerm not here, we've had to sort of shuffle the order around a little bit. But just quickly on those packs, we were just saying they're off air. If we had to give those pack openings a rating, that'll be duds. So, yeah, lucky they're not being thrown in our rating here. But, yeah, very keen to see, again, if anyone else can have better pack luck than us. And even in that video where we have a specific one for our pack opening video, we didn't have much luck there either. But hopefully someone out there is having some luck and having a good team. But, Tom, I believe you have the first game with all studs and duds. Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, mate. The first game, it was your Port Power versus the Demons, and we know how the result went in that one. Wasn't too good for Port. What is it?
I said I forgot this was the first game. I completely blocked it out of my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, look, unfortunately, we're going to have to get straight into it. And I know that you've been going through it this year, man. But let's get into the start of this game. And it was Max Gawn. And, you know, after some criticism here at GameDay Squad about Gawn's expectation this season, what he's delivered from rounds 1 to 3, it was most certainly not up to his elite standard. But I'll tell you what, he's turned it around in this one. He's had a huge performance, kicking a goal, 18 kicks, 7 handballs, 12 marks of the footy, 33 hitouts. Gawn looked like he was playing 2021 September footy again. An amazing game from the big fella. And you can see there his fantasy score, 163 GameDay Squad fantasy points.
Massive.
Unbelievable, mate. But Riley Bonner, for you guys, shout out to him. He was a close second, but no one could top the big Gawny in this one. And I got my dud for this game as Bailey Fritsch. And for a player that kicked 3 goals... I can see why people wouldn't be too happy with this selection, but I've got my fantasy goggles on here, sorry. And when you have a game like that and only get to 63 GameDay Squad fantasy points, it's a little underwhelming in my opinion. You know, 3 goals would have been a really good game, but don't know if he's that fantasy stud that we've all been hoping from him, especially because of how much usage he's getting in that forward line. But for this one, Fritsch is my dud, Gawn is my stud. And I'll hand it over to you for game 2, hey?
Yeah, well, with our scores, I was just going to say for 8 points for a goal and 4 points for a kick. So 36 of those 63 points were just from his 3 goals, which sort of shows he didn't do much outside of that. But hey, there was a good part of that game where we hadn't scored a goal up until about halfway through that third quarter, and I would have killed for one. So for him to have had probably a couple by that stage, yeah. But no, I'm very surprised you didn't have just the whole bloody Port team in that dud box, but hey, maybe that's for another show where I can come on and I can
come on, mate. There's some fantasy. Yeah, exactly. And there was some fantasy production there. So you know what? Not everyone can be a dud.
Yeah, and we'll move quickly on to game 2, which was that Lions and Geelong game that we were talking about. And you said it before, Tom Hawkins, he was my absolute stud. So not the highest scoring of the game. So Isaac Smith was just behind him, but for a forward to come out and average and get 123 GameDay Squad points is huge. So obviously we know midfielders dominate the scoring. So if a forward's up there competing, it's a massive, massive game. 5 goals, 7 marks, gave him that season.
Exactly.
123, fully deserved. And yeah, I think we were talking about him with my dad, and I remember quoting something. I think it was Lee Matthews a long time ago. He said, if there's one player in the competition that doesn't need to do any more bench press, it's Tom Hawkins. And it's so true. That guy, he's so strong.
Oh yeah, he's dominant.
Now, I'm going to have a theme with some of my duds this week, and the first off that theme is Cam Rayna. So, former number 1 pick, and currently only 22 years old. He has come off his ACL that he did earlier last year, so this might be a bit harsh, but he did have his whole preseason, and for me, this game kind of summed up what his year's been so far. Only 64 GameDay Squad points, and just hasn't been the player that everyone was thinking he was going to be. And you know, he really burst onto that scene that first year with the Lions, and I went, wow, they've got an absolute stud here. And he just hasn't quite hit that yet. There's still plenty of time for him, but yeah, only 64 points. If you had banked on Rayna coming back and having a big this year, you'd be a little bit disappointed, and yeah, just like you would have been if you had him in your team. So he was my dud. You have
and fair enough as well, you know. Yes, I do. And what a game to have. Swans versus the Kangas. And my stud is going to Jaden Stevenson. He had a belter of a game in this one. He is really, really good at playing footy. And as you can see from his fantasy score on the screen there of 141 Game Day Squad fantasy points, he achieved this by contributing 16 kicks, 8 handballs, 7 marks, 8 tackles, and did this with only 10 centre bounce attendances. The Kangas were unlucky not to walk away with the win in this contest, but Stevenson more than held his own in this one. So great game from him. Isaac Heaney was a close second, and I just want to shout out Jason Horne-Francis having his best fantasy outing since debuting in round 1. He was pretty good. He's a good player.
Yeah.
Watching that, I was like, wow, they got a good one there.
Very good player. I think that was his, like, if he scores like a goal and the North get across the line there, that's his statement game. Everyone's like, he's arrived. But no, he's a weapon.
Yep.
He's so
yep.
good. Not saying that he hasn't arrived, but
he's still arrived.
The game was there for him. The game
exactly.
was there for him to have that sort of Chris Judd, maybe like, shit, this guy's going to be a problem. But no, fair enough. It's amazing what Stevenson can do when he's not messing around on motorcycles, eh?
Exactly right, mate. You're too right about that. And let me get into the dud section. Let me get into the duds here. My dud for this game was Luke Parker, and he just had a quiet contest in this one, not achieving the fantasy production that we've come accustomed to seeing from him. His line was 8 kicks, 10 handballs, 1 mark, 1 tackle. And to be honest, it's not a big concern, but seeing this is definitely disappointing from a fantasy perspective. And he scored, as you can see there, 53 Game Day Squad points in this one. I got 2 other little mentions for dud there, Hugh Greenwood and Dan Rampy. Backman for the Swannies. Just, again, quiet ones as well. Expecting a little bit more from them. But yeah, that's my studs and duds for that game. And I have game 4 here. So I'll hop in here. Collingwood versus the Eagles. My stud of the game was Brody Grundy. And this seemed like it was the round of the top ruckman. He scored 142 Game Day Squad fantasy points. And man, Gone, Grundy having huge performances. They're back. They're showing the league who the top dogs are. And Grundy was able to do this with 14 kicks, 5 handballs, 5 marks, and 6 tackles as a ruckman. Really impressive, working really hard around the ground. He's, played an awesome game, but I'll be honest with you, I think Nick Dacos got a little bit unlucky with not getting the start of this game, but I had him as a really close second behind him. But my dud for this game was Will Hoskin Elliott. He only scored 56 Game Day Squad fantasy points in this one. He didn't have a terrible game. It was honestly just below expectation, which is why I have him in the dud, or picked him for the dud. He's coming off some great fantasy weeks to start the season, but unfortunately this just wasn't one of them. He had 6 kicks, 4 handballs, 2 marks, and 2 tackles. Just a quiet game from Will Hoskin Elliott, and that's why he's taken my dud selection out for game 4. But I believe you have game 5, so get us started, mate. Who's your start in that one?
I do. There were some good picks on those ones. I like them, and you're too right about the ruckman really starting to dominate. Game 5, I had the Tigers and the Dogs, and we've spoken about this guy so much, and my stud is Bailey Smith. I don't care that they lost. This guy is 1A, 1B, 1C, whatever you want to have him between Walsh, Brayshaw and him as the best young midfielders in the comp that you want in your team for the next 10 years. 151 Game Day Squad points this weekend. He now has the highest average Game Day Squad score in the whole competition. And again, he's still 21. Insane. We keep going on about him. We're going to have to stop. We're just going to have a sticker we put up, and you just know it means that Bailey Smith was a stud.
We or you? Because I think a lot of it's been coming from your mouth, man. I'll be honest with you. He's good though. I'll give it to you. Hey, I'm on the wagon.
Yeah, it's unfair how good he is. Now, duds. So I said there was a theme for my duds this week, and it's piling on high draft picks. And this was another Formula One number one pick. But damn, Yamara Ugle-Hagen. There we go. There's a tongue twister for me. What happened to him on the weekend? 82% time on ground, yet he scored 18 Game Day Squad points on only 2 kicks, 3 handballs, 2 marks, and a free against. Like, his worst score for the season. And I'll be so surprised next week if he still gets a game. And I'll be even more surprised if anyone actually wants to put him in your team for next week. So, yeah, just a massive dud. He's still young. It's only his second year. He is developing. But, yeah, for those people who thought maybe this was sort of going to be the year where he can sort of a bit more like, a bit more open forward line, he'd get a few more games, etc. With Bruce being out. Yeah, he's not delivering on it at the moment. So yeah,
you're right, and this is his second time coming up in the dud category as well. So it's not a first time appearance there.
No, it is not. I believe I've got the next game, which was the Freo Giants game. So the stud for this one, Will Brody, had himself a day out, which it's a great game when he's outshone Brayshaw, who also had another great game. But Will Brody, 148 GameDay Squad points, 18 kicks, 19 handballs, 5 tackles. And yeah, this 23-year-old has really burst onto the scene as a GDS stud. Now, Tom, I know how much you're going to love this, but we talk about the 1-2 punch. We talk about the stacking.
Yep.
But can you just imagine if this guy can keep it going, keep this up? Brayshaw keeps developing. And here's an extra one. Let's talk about a 1-2-3 punch with Sean Darcy, the ruckman, the player that we think he might become. And we know how high Kerm is on him. Can you ever imagine a scenario growing up where you're looking to stack your midfield and your ruckman with three or four Freo players? I never would have thought about it, but it's, suddenly Freo are one of my favourite teams to watch in the competition for it, and might soon be making a lot of waves in my fantasy team.
Yeah, I agree there, man, for sure.
And my dud, again, going after high draft picks, Lockie Ash. I've spoken a lot about him, but 58 points from the former number 4 pick. And this just goes in another game for him, for me, where he just hasn't got to the level where I thought he might. Only 15 touches, most of them handballs, and he gave away 4 free kicks, which just really compounds and makes a bad day even worse. So, yeah, he wasn't the worst player on the ground, but in saying that, when I was having a look through the list of players that were worse than him, none of them are really fantasy relevant anyway. So he was probably the bottom of the list for that. So, yeah, my dud of the week.
Yep.
But back to yourself. You've got the Saints and Hawks. Sorry, that's my game. You've got the Crows and Essendon.
Got Essendon v the Crows. Yeah, I sure do. Starting this one is a guy that you mentioned in this podcast. It's Ben Keys. And how can you not mention this guy when we're talking about fantasy studs? 157 GameDay Squad fantasy points in this one. He is arguably... Actually, you know what? It's not an argument anymore. He is the Crows' best player. Let's be honest.
Ooh. And
he's done it again in this one from this season. He's been killing it all year. He's continuing to kill it with high touches of the footy in every game so far and working hard around the ground to gain some extra fantasy points on top. Fantasy managers will be stoked with the season he is having so far. He finished this game with a game line of 19 kicks, 8 handballs, 3 marks, and 12 tackles. 12. And when you're looking at fantasy scores, those 12 tackles definitely buffed him up. Definitely buffed him up to that 150 range, because without those tackles, that's a pretty average game in terms of footy fantasy. Shoutouts to Rory Laird and Darcy Parish in this one, but just couldn't overtake the stud. So my dud in this one is Matt Crouch. He's another player I've placed in the dud category this week. And it's not because he had a terrible game. It's honestly just the expectation that we have on him and what he delivered. He finished the game with 9 kicks, 17 handballs, 3 marks, and only 1 tackle. And you just go to think, if those 17 handballs, half of those are kicks, he has a much better fantasy outing, and he probably isn't in the dud category for this game. But just a little bit unlucky there. And yeah, I'll put him as my dud for the week. His shout out dud, it's not really a shout out, it's a shout down, is Dylan Shield. Didn't have a good game in this one either. Just hasn't really been that fantasy, hasn't had that fantasy production that he could have in that team, because he's one of the better players inside that midfield. But yeah, just isn't getting the job done.
Yeah, people might be wondering where our preview show of round 4 was. So with a couple other things and the guys going down with injuries, we did record it, or I recorded it, but it just was awful quality and we just didn't end up putting it up. But one of my questions for the round was going to be, who steps into that Zach Merritt spot? Who's going to get who wants to eat? Maybe that was the week before. Maybe I'm getting my weeks confused. But yeah, again, there's people not stepping up. They had a win there, but yeah, none of them in your best or studs. So,
yep.
No, fair enough.
Correct.
That game I said before, I tried to jump you before, Saints and Hawks. So you're going to like this, Tom, because finally your man, and that's right, I'm giving you him, Jack Steele, got on the board with his first 150-point game of the season. 33 touches, 10 marks, led the way for a Saints team that's now in a lot of form and looks really, really good. before this, he had what I'd probably say was 3 good games. So he had games above 100, but wasn't at that sort of top level that we expect him at, that currently Smith and Boak and those guys are at the moment.
Yeah.
But with a premium, you want great, and he finally had his first great game. So, yeah, shout out to all those guys who have been persisting with him in AFL Fantasy. Definitely paid dividends, and, yeah, definitely a player you want in your game day squad because you know how good he's going to be for you and your team when he has games like this. So,
yeah, absolutely, man. He was ripper on this one.
And, yeah, probably got the first 3 votes in his Brownlow campaign that you said he was going to run away and win with. So, yeah, slowly, here he comes.
Let's hope so. You never know, mate. Yeah, here we go.
And finally, my last attack on the high draft picks in my duds this week was... Oh, sorry, I was going to continue the theme I should have said, was Josh Ward. I was going to give it to him, but I feel like I'm piling on this guy just because I expected so much of him. But yeah, he's only played 4 games of footy, so I've got to leave him alone. So I'm going to go to another one of you boys, Tom. Jack Gunston. 22 game day squad points was all he got. 3 touches, all game, no goals. His worst game by far, and he's just gone backwards since turning up in round of 1, which now already seems so long ago. So, yeah, for anyone that thought Jack Gunston was going to be it this year, he's made you look very silly.
Hey, mate, look, there's still time. It's only 4 rounds in. He didn't play any football last year, so he's just getting back into the groove. We've seen some glimpses of some really good footy, and then we've seen... games like this. So we'll see how he continues over the next couple of weeks, and then maybe that sort of decision you've just made there will be set in stone.
Yeah, and final game I know we're going to talk about is Kerm's Gold Coast Suns getting a surprise win over Carlton. I know he was messaging me. He didn't want to jinx it, even when they were 30 points up in the last quarter. I'm like, you're home. And he's like, not yet. The poor Suns fans and what that franchise has done to them over the years. But go through, give us your studs and duds.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, mate, I'm pretty upset that Kerm couldn't do this one because I just know the amount of energy and the passion he would have brought to this. What a great win from the Suns just quietly. And the reason why he was scared is that you can never count the Carlton Blues out with some of the performances they've had this year. There is no game that you've won until that final whistle blows. So that's why he was probably on his seat, shaking, just hoping they could hang on and get that win. But my start of this game was Zach Williams, and he stepped up in this one in a big way. Although the Carlton Blues lost, Williams did his best to fill the void that Cripps left on the field because he only played a total of 29 minutes in this one. Leather poisoning for Zach Williams was a high possibility as he finished the game with 31 kicks, 5 handballs, 5 marks, 5 tackles, and 171 game day squad fantasy points. That is a start if I've heard one in a game. What a outstanding performance from Zach Williams. And shout out to Lockie Weller as well. He was nearly there, but Zach Williams had you in this one for the start of the game. On the flip side, dud, I got Isaac Rankin as my dud for this game. And although he doesn't put up big fantasy scores on average or usually, for his standards, this was a shocker. He had very little involvement with the footy and was only able to have 2 scoring shots, 1 resulting in a goal. And his line for the game was 3 kicks, 4 handballs, 1 mark, and 0 tackles. Just did not have a good game in this one. And a shout down, as I said before, for Harry McKay. He didn't have a good game either in this one, but Isaac Rankin took out dud of the game for me.
Yeah, had a broken nose to go along with his poor game, poor Harry McKay. But yeah, that wraps us up for studs and duds for round 4.
Alright guys, and we're back for our last segment of the podcast, which is our buy, sell and hold. But as you can probably tell, things are a bit different from our past segment, and that's because we've had some connection issues on Callum's end. We're not sure about the quality of the video. Hopefully it's still going to be outstanding like we normally put out. But Callum, mate, what happened to the internet? Like, we was a bit in shambles going through that recording, hey? Like, we really needed to reset here.
Yeah, internet wasn't playing nice with us, so I've jumped on the hotspot. So hopefully this now works on this last segment. I had to jump off for another meeting, and hence why the colours have probably changed. And I've got a hat on now, but we got one more segment. We'll get through it. I think we're at buy, sell, hold, which is maybe my actual favourite segment we do. So keen to hear you. I think you're kicking it off.
Yeah, mate, I'll get us started off. And I'm going to go with buy first, and it's Jake Lloyd. And I mentioned him before as what I got right this week was Jake Lloyd. And again now, I'm bringing him up for the buy segment here because he's a cornerstone piece of the Swans' backline and also transitioning the ball as a defender through the mids and the forwards. He's always being used every game. He has such a high usage rate with the footy, and his role is just so pivotal, and you can see that when he goes out there and plays. So if you're looking for a defender for footy fantasy right now, especially in GameDay Squad's game that we're going to be bringing out to you, and as Callum mentioned before in the podcast as well, we're going to have a transfer market and there's going to be opportunities for you to make upgrades like this as the season goes on. And Jake Lloyd is one of the people that I'm looking at for the defenders, and that's someone that you should also be looking at too, trying to get into your best 18. Now, my sell, and guys, I've already mentioned this person as a sell in week 2 for the review show that we did. So this is the last time I'm going to bring them up. And the reason I'm bringing them up is because I'm stressing the importance of selling this player right now. And that player is Oliver Wines from the Port Power. We've had different segments before explaining the importance of team success to midfield production in AFL Fantasy, and if you're looking at the Port Powers team and the form they're in right now, things are not looking good, and they're not looking like they're going to get any better anytime soon. And speaking of Oliver Wines, he had to leave the game early this week because he had an irregular heart function. The severity of this issue has not yet been determined, and we wish him all the best, and hopefully we see some good news about Wines soon, because that's not the sort of thing you want to be hearing, whether you're a fan of the club or not. That is just terrible news and tragic. So regards to him and best wishes. But irrespective of all of that, I'm not big on Oliver Wines moving forward. I'm not big on the Port Power. And if you want to get full value out of your Oliver Wines in AFL Fantasy, now's the time to start making some moves. And that's why he is my sell candidate for this show. And to wrap it all up, my hold candidate is going to be Nick Martin from the Essendon Bombers. And since his stellar round 1 performance, Martin hasn't seen the same production since then. He's not been able to crack the triple-digit scoring in rounds 3 and 4. In saying this, though, his games have been good. They just haven't been great like the first round. And if you're looking at a player like him, he's definitely worth holding on to, because you know that GameDay Squad is a dynasty game, so you're going to have him for years to come. And he's definitely earned a spot somewhere in your club, whether it's on your bench or you're just hanging on to him. Please do, because feel like he has so much good footy left ahead of him if everything goes right throughout his career, and he's a player I'm holding on to irrespective. And that'll wrap up my buy, sell, and hold. With Jake Lloyd, my buy, sell Oliver Wines right now. Nick Martin, just hang on to him, because why not?
Spicy, particularly with the Wines. Had a second dig at him. But I'll jump in for mine. And we said earlier on the show, we talked about Benny Keys. For you guys, it might have been 10 minutes ago. For us, it was maybe a couple hours ago. But I remember saying I didn't have Benny Keys, but I liked it. But you said he was maybe the best player for the Crows. But what about Rory Laird? So he's 28, but he's a win now midfielder who missed the first 2 rounds and has come back with a ton against Port, and he's just gone 140 plus in his second game. He was their fantasy leader last year. I remember you had him as your star, when I went Keys. But he looks like he hasn't missed a beat since he's come back. And I think a lot of people will be running to him now saying, yep, he's just the stud that he was last year. And I think rightly so. If you miss out on him this week, he's only going to get more and more expensive going forward, because he's going to just keep putting in numbers. Now, my sell, maybe it was the theme of putting in Port Adelaide players, but this one hurts me a lot. And I want to be very clear. This guy is maybe my favourite Port Adelaide player of all time. But I've gone Travis Boak as my sell. And this is 110% because it's a sell high moment, not because he's a dud. All 4 of his games so far have been 120 GDS plus. And you could make the case that, hey, when Port start winning, if we ever start winning again, what's that like, hey? But I just think that maybe you can make that, but whether I think there's some big changes coming, like maybe Amon or Butters start getting a bit more time, or something's not working, even though he's getting his numbers. And I just feel, like I said, he's already 33 years old for a dynasty model. Do I think he's going to be averaging this high for the rest of the season, or is this going to be the highest point of his average for the season? I think yes is the answer to that. As much as I love him, And from a dynasty view going forward, I don't think he's going to be the type of guy that ages well as like a forward midfielder. He's never been much of a goal kicker in his career. So when he runs out of the midfield, I think that'll be the end of him. But again, I absolutely love you, Travis Boak. You maybe are my favourite Port player of all time, but I think a perfect opportunity to sell high. One of the only Port players that can really sort of keep their head held high over the last couple of weeks. And someone else I love, my favourite player at the moment, and my guy.
Wow.
Yeah, the Travis Boak. Yeah, my favourite player, Paddy Cripps. So he's gone down with a hamstring injury and the loss to the Gold Coast Suns. And we don't know how bad it is at this stage. So it's hard to know exactly what to do if you're playing Supercoach or Fantasy. But even GameDay Squad, you'd be absolutely mental if you were trying to sell this card at the moment. He will come back. He will be the Blues' best player. And he is the heartbeat of that team. When they're up and about, and when he's up and about, they win. He was killing it on the weekend. I think when he went down, he was the highest scoring fantasy player at the time. So even in a game where he gets injured, he can still do that. It does sting for my Brownlow pick, but I'm still backing him 100% to come back. And I think everyone who has him should as well. So don't hit the panic button on him yet. Yeah, that's my buy, sell, hold. A few big ones there between us, I think, Tom.
Oh, mate, tell me about it. And I cannot believe your sell. You've gone after your own team. That must have really hurt, just having that all down there and writing that little bit up, because I can just feel the pain through the screen right now, what you were going through while saying that. So credit to you. He's put his fantasy cap on and he's trying to give the best advice rather than wearing his Port Adelaide eye patch and giving some pretty terrible advice. So I respect it, mate. Well done. And for all the listeners and viewers right now, if you've made it this far in the video, please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, because we have so much fantasy content coming across AFL, NRL every single week, previews, reviews. If you want to be caught up to date with what's going on in the league and decisions that you need to make, watch these videos. So subscribe so you get and push those post notifications on so you get notified when they're coming out. Other than that, we're supported by GameDay Squad. You've got all the links in the description. Go check us out if you're unsure about what we do here and the fantasy platform that we are releasing. But yeah, cheers, guys. Thanks for checking into another show, and we'll catch you later.